My name is Jonathan Silva, and welcome back to another episode in my Power Automate Basics series here for YouTube. For this video, I'm focusing on one of the great features inside of Power Automate, one of the really great actions that we can use called approvals. Now, what approvals provide us is a way to designate some series of actions cannot be completed until one or multiple people actually go through and approve of that process. So when we take a look at approvals themselves, what exactly are they? Well, an approval flow is a way for us to manage any type of process or document application throughout our services here to make sure that a series of events have been completed, have been approved in order to continue down through the rest of the actions inside of that flow. Now, one of the great things about approvals is we can incorporate all of our Office 365 users and groups within this process, so you can make sure that anybody inside of your organization is part of the approvals necessary to continue the flow from that point. Now, what we also have within our approvals is the ability to be very flexible. Because we can use dynamic content within those approvals and variables within those approvals, we can make it where we want the approval to work exactly in the format that we so choose and develop. So what we can do is we can pause a flow, we can wait on a response within a flow, we can set up an approval process to simply just cancel the flow from that point on, or to continue to wait until everybody has decided on the next series of events to come before we go ahead and continue on with the flow from there. What we can also see within our approvals is the way to interact with them on multiple different interfaces. Not only can we approve different processes within the flow from the web application at powerautomate.com or flow.microsoft.com, we can also do the exact same thing inside of Microsoft Teams in the desktop app and in the web application. But we will also be able to do all of that from our email. So it'll pop up as an email to you that you can approve or reject from inside of that email itself. And even further, we can do it on our mobile application for our cell phones or any other mobile device that you are using. As long as you have the Power Automate mobile application in there, you can go ahead and either approve or reject that proposition within the flow in order to kick it off to move on to the next step. So let's go ahead and take a look at a flow that we're going to build to include an approval. Now, part of this flow is also going to use some conditionals, and it's going to use some other type of flow logic in there. So if you're interested in any of that, take a look at my other videos here with Power Automate Basics on how to use conditionals and controls inside of a flow, the different types of triggers available to you, and the different responses you can take within those flows themselves. All right, so here at powerautomate.com or flow.microsoft.com is where we're going to go ahead and create our approval. Now, this approval process is solely developed around the completion of a Microsoft form. Now, here's the Microsoft form that we're using as the basis for this approval process. It's a very basic form that I've created quite quickly, in fact, based on travel expenses. So anytime we travel with our organization, we can go ahead and try to expense out all the things that we purchased or spent money on so we can get that money back from our organization. So for the responses here, we have our name, the trip location, the date of the trip, the total expense amount, and if we have submitted the receipts that we want to have expensed back to us. Okay, so we have all of that here to be able to use within our different form. So now if I go back to my flow, you'll notice that I am using the trigger when a new response is submitted on that specific form itself. So I have that as the basis of all the actions I'm going to be taking from this point on. The second step that I've already created was to get response details from that form. So once the new response is submitted, go ahead and grab those details, and then we can use that inside of an approval process. So the very next step that I want to add in here is my approval. So I'm going to go ahead and select New Step. And now what I can do is search for approval. Now here in our search bar, we can get 3 different types of approvals that are available to us. Okay, the first one, start and wait for an approval. Okay, with this approval type, we're going to let the series of events occur and then stop the flow from this point on and wait for an approval to occur in order for us to go ahead and add in the next series of actions. Okay, so now this one, you can choose a lot of different options within it as we choose this later on. The second choice that we have here, wait for an approval. This completely pauses the entire flow itself at that point on, and it will not complete any type of series of actions after it until some type of approval has been done somewhere prior in the process of the flow itself. And then finally, we have create an approval. This create an approval step here, or action here, creates this approval, but it can also be skipped over. This create approval, if it creates an approval, we can just, delete that approval and just continue on with the flow if we like from that point. So it gives us a lot of different options here as we want to build out our flow. In the case for this one, I'm going to choose start and wait for an approval. I like to use this one most because it gives me a little bit more control over all the different series of events from this point on. And it's definitely one of the more popular options for us to choose. So when I choose start and wait for an approval, the next thing I need to do is choose the approval type. We have 4 different generic approval types at our disposal to start off with. The first, approve or reject, where everyone must approve of this series of events or this action in order to go down the next step. In this case, if one person out of like a team or a collective rejects this approval process, then we are going to go down a different path and the actual approval does not go through. So it really makes it, if it's a whole team decision, everybody must approve to go on from that point. We also have approve, reject, first to respond. So if you have a team of responders, maybe manager level or whoever you want to have, to decide the outcome of this approve, but it really doesn't matter for everybody to say yes or no. Just whoever gets there first, let's go ahead and run the rest of the flow because it's a time-sensitive issue. So first to respond is often used very much because it gets you down to that decision rather quickly. We also have some custom responses to wait for all responses or wait from one response that we can build in here as well. In this case, I like to use first to response because I want to make sure my whole flow continues to process rather quickly, and I don't want to wait for everybody on a specific Azure Active Directory group or team that I build in here to be able to put together. So I'm going to choose first to respond. And now what I'll do is create a title for the approval. In this case, this is the title that'll show up when the approval goes through. So inside of the message, either in the Teams application or on web here on our approvals on the far left here on our action items, you can see our approvals are located right here. Okay, that'll be the first message that we see inside of there. For this one, I'll put in something like a new travel expense was submitted, waiting for your response. Okay, something simple. You can change it up as we so choose. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to choose myself here for the assign to, just to make it easier to test. But this is where you can assign either one or multiple people or groups of individuals from Office 365 to be part of this approval process. And now right here inside of our details, this is where we actually propose the message. This is the message that will be sent out for the approval itself for whoever's going to be the one going through this process. So in the details here, I can really decide exactly what I want to see. Like perhaps maybe I want to start off by saying, please respond to the request, see below, move my mouse out of the way, below for details. And then come down a few lines, and then I can maybe add in person requesting and use some of my dynamic content in here. So I can put in the name, whoever they submitted their name as. You could also, if you'd like to, instead of putting their name, you could put their email here, whoever submitted that. I could put trip location And we can add that in because that's just a response to a question. Expense amount. Put a $sign in there first to make sure it actually captures our currency in there and total expense amount. And the last one, I'll put receipts submitted, yes or no, were they submitted? And so I'll go ahead and add that last one right there. And that looks pretty good, right? That's something that we can use, and it's nice and simple for us to have. So the next step that we're gonna have in here is, now that we have an approval, what series of actions occur after this was either approved or rejected? So what I'm going to add in next is a condition control. So based upon this approval status, I'm going to branch out into two different options. If it was approved, go one way. If it was rejected, go another. And then have a series of events afterwards that I can control for that process. Maybe I want to send out an email both ways and just say, hey, your expense was approved, or no, it was rejected based on these conditions, or something along those lines. So let's go ahead and add in that condition control. Right here is another step here. And if you want to learn more about the different types of controls, conditions, and different cases, you can go ahead and check out my other videos. I have a couple videos displaying content on that. So the next thing is we're going to choose the value. Now in this case, the value we want for this condition is going to be whatever gets decided for our approval. So we're going to choose the outcome of the approval as the value of our condition. Okay, so that's going to be the test, the logical test for this condition. So I'm going to choose outcome. And we're going to say the outcome is equal to approve. Nice and simple. So if yes, if the outcome of this approval is equal to yes, approve, what should we do? Now what we want to do in this case is add an action, and we'll just make it nice and simple for the case of this one here, is send an email. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and use the Office 365 Outlook connector here to send an email. And in this case, I want to send the email back to whoever submitted the initial form. So we're going to use some dynamic content in this case, and we're going to choose the responder's email. Whoever submitted the form, we want them to get the response of this yes. Now, the subject of this, we can just say, let's see, travel expense approval confirmed. Something along those lines. And then we can just put in here, hi. Let's put the name of the person again, a little bit more dynamic content here. Your travel expense of, let's put in some more dynamic content, for the trip to was approved. Okay, pretty simple there. That's it. That's all we really need to do. Okay, so we can have that as our send email there. We can rename this step as well. It's probably a good convention here to rename this to send an email for approved expense. And then we can go ahead and go down our no path. So if the outcome of our approval was not approved, what do we want to do? In this case, we want to, again, send an email. I like using that Outlook Office 365 connector there. We're going to send this again to the same responder here. Okay, and our subject here, our travel expense was rejected. And then in our body, we can say I will make it some more dynamic content in here. Why not? Go ahead and choose our name. Your travel expense was not approved. Please see, and we can choose the email address or the name of whoever responded to this, the name of the approver from that approval step. we can choose them as some dynamic content here to be able to use. So please see them for details. Now, what you'll notice is as I created that and used the sponsor as approver name, what was automatically created inside of this response here was an apply to each loop. Now take a look at my other video on loops and apply to each and how we can use those inside of our flows. But what this generally does is says, well, because we can have multiple responses in our approval, because it's whoever's the first to respond, because we can have multiple responses, it's going to continue to loop through this until it finds those responses for each and every individual that has the ability to respond. And then it's going to go ahead and send that email once it captures one of those people. Okay, so that's why we have that there. Once I added in responses approver name, because again, there's multiple people that can respond, we even apply to each. So it can iterate over that, okay? So that looks good. The very last step we have is let's go ahead and test this. Let's see if this works. So I'm gonna go ahead and test it in the top right there. We're gonna do a save and test, and we're gonna do a manual test in this case. To manually test this, we're just gonna add in another item into our form. Okay, so I'll go to my travel expense here. I'm gonna just select preview here to just go ahead and edit this in. I'll put my name in here, and I'm getting it to myself, but that's okay. Oh, looks like just try that again. Our trip location, I'm gonna say I'm going to London. Why not, right? Let's say I'll go I'll leave on the weekend. My total expense amount, I want to put $1,500. And that's quite a big one, so let's see. If it gets approved, I mean, I'm the approver, so I'm gonna approve it myself. Let's go ahead and receipt submitted. Yep, let's say that. It was submitted. Let's take a look at our flow in this case. All right, so we have the responses submitted. We've gotten details. Now, we are currently waiting for the approval to occur. Okay, so we're waiting for it right now. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and check my email because that's often the quickest way that these approvals come through. Okay, let's see if I've gotten that email yet. And here it comes. And this is what the email looks like as it comes in. So it's giving me the exact information I was asking to provide. So we have some information here. Please respond to the request. See below for details. Looks like I added in another L there, so I'm gonna have to go back and edit that later on. Do I want to approve or reject this? I'm gonna go ahead this time and say approve. And then I can add in some comments here if I wanted to, whatever I wanna have. Congrats, I don't know. I had to come up with something crazy. Submit. And then inside of this email, it's gonna tell me that, hey, everything was done. What I will also, there's my approval, there's my submit option. If I wanted to see it inside of Power Automate here, I just go into my action items and see my approvals from there. What I've now also received in my email was, there's another one. Hi, Jonathan, your travel request was for the trip to London was approved. Pretty good. So that was one of our conditions that we created. If we were to come back in here and test it once again, okay, and I'm gonna go from an automatic test with the recently used trigger, so it's just one that I have here. Go ahead and test that once again. It's gonna go and run through the whole process, and this time, let's go ahead and reject it to make sure both of those conditions are actually working in this case. And it was that quick this time, it came right in. Here it is once again. This is a different one that I'm gonna go ahead and reject instead. And say, and I'll just go ahead and respond with sorry. And submit that. And let's see what email response I get this time based upon that condition. And there is my confirmation. Let's take a look. My trip was rejected. Hi, your travel expense was not approved. Please see myself in this case for details, but it depends on who is actually doing the approval. That will be dynamically changing for that specific value. So everything's actually working great for us this way. It makes it nice and simple for us to be able to actually use, to be able to add in these approvals however we like to use inside of our flow. Now, what you'll notice with this approval is it's followed by some type of condition, some type of control. That's something you'll often see with approvals, right? You have an approval process. Let's go ahead and do something after that approval process has completed. So go down yes or go down a no branch. After that, you can continue on with your flow from there. What you'll notice is we have approvals, and you can actually create multiple approvals inside of flows as well. So you don't have to be stuck on one type of approval or one approval per flow. You can start to implement these in multiple levels inside of your flow if it gets much more detailed from that point. All right, well, thank you very much for joining me again today. I look forward to hearing some of your comments in the comment section. Please remember to go ahead and drop a like. Go ahead and subscribe here to make sure you're getting all the up-to-date and the newest content that I'm putting out here on YouTube. And follow all of us here at Pragmatic Works as we try to give you all these amazing free tips and things available all throughout the entire Power platform. Well, until next time, again, Jonathan Silva here saying, see you later.